For 25 years, Brightview Senior Living has been dedicated to creating an award-winning company culture so residents and families receive best-in-class services. Across our 50 communities, Brightview associates help deliver peace of mind, safety, security, transportation, daily programs, delicious food, and high-quality care if needed. Discover how our vibrant senior living communities can help you live your best life. Visit brightviewseniorliving.com to learn more. Equal housing opportunity.
Imagine you're a fly on the wall at a dinner between the mafia, the CIA, and the KGB. That's where my new podcast begins. This is Neil Strauss, host of To Live and Die in LA, and I wanted to quickly tell you about an intense new series about a dangerous spy taught to seduce men for their secrets and sometimes their lives. From Tenderfoot TV, this is To Die For. To Die For is available now. Listen for free on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart, and we're back with a new season of my podcast. This season will be even more revealing and more personal, with more entrepreneurs, more live events, and more questions from you. I'm talking to my cosmetic dermatologist, Dr. Dan Belkin, about the secrets behind my skincare. Encore Jane about creating a billion-dollar startup. Walter Isaacson about the geniuses who changed the world. Listen and subscribe to the Martha Stewart podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
If you want to level up your marketing and business knowledge, look no further than the Marketing School podcast, hosted by Neil Patel and yours truly, Eric Su. It is the #1 marketing podcast on Apple and number 15 on business in the United States. Now, if you want to listen to interesting conversations with operators that have been there, done that, also with other interesting guests, then listen to Marketing School every weekday on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Before we get started, just a heads up. This episode contains mentions of rape and violence. Hello. From Wonder Media Network, I'm Jenny Kaplan, and this is Womanica. Historically, women have been told to make themselves smaller, to diminish themselves. Some have used that idea to their advantage, disappearing into new identities. For others, a disappearance was the end to their stories, but the beginning of a new chapter in their legacies. This month, we're telling the stories of these women. We're talking about disappearing acts. Today, we're talking about a woman who symbolized resilience, courage, and the indomitable spirit of the Indigenous peoples of North America. Let's talk about Mae Aquash. Mae was born on March 27, 1945, on the Mi'kmaq Indian Reserve in Nova Scotia, Canada. Her mother supported Mae and her two sisters through welfare and work as a housekeeper. Mae's father worked in Maine in logging camps. Mae left Nova Scotia when she was 16. She moved to Maine to work as a farmhand. From there, she joined a group of Eastern Canadians known as Maritimers in their migration to Boston to find better employment. In 1965, Mae married fellow Mi'kmaq Jake Maloney. They had 2 daughters together before divorcing a few years later. In Boston, Mae joined a group that helped Indigenous people find jobs and education and fight addictions. It was called the Boston Indian Council. There, she witnessed firsthand the discrimination and marginalization faced by Indigenous communities at the hands of colonial powers. So when she was offered a scholarship to Brandeis University, Mae turned it down to continue her Indigenous community advocacy work. Determined to make a difference, Mae became actively involved in the American Indian Movement, or AIM, during the 1970s. This marked a period of intense activism and social upheaval. AIM was an anti-establishment movement, modeled after the Black Panthers. AIM promoted Indigenous rights in the United States. The organization was known as one of the more radical advocacy groups for Indigenous civil rights. Mae participated in many of its protests, marches, and advocacy campaigns. In 1972, AIM organized the Trail of Broken Treaties March in Washington, D.C. Mae was among the protesters who occupied the Bureau of Indian Affairs building. Demonstrators hung a banner that said Native American Embassy and barricaded themselves inside, going through boxes and boxes of documents. The next year, Anna Mae went to South Dakota. There, she joined the 10-week occupation of the village of Wounded Knee at the Lakota Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. In 1890, federal troops perpetrated a massacre of the Sioux people at Wounded Knee. This occupation was in protest of decades of the U.S. government failing to honor Native treaties. Anna Mae was eager to be among her fellow AIM activists. She wrote in a letter to her sister, "The whole country changed with only a handful of raggedy-ass pilgrims that came over here in the 1500s. And it can take a handful of raggedy-ass Indians to do the same, and I intend to be one of those raggedy-ass Indians." But AIM suffered from a misogynistic, hierarchical social order. And when Anna Mae was put on kitchen duty by AIM's leader, she replied, "Mr. Banks, I didn't come here to wash dishes. I came here to fight." Not even Anna Mae's own people were going to deny her participation in this standoff. She was aware of the corruption and injustice inside the organization, and she didn't shy away from it. Instead, she spoke out and challenged leadership. This ruffled feathers within AIM. Anna Mae left Pine Ridge before the occupation culminated in the death of 2 FBI agents. Still, she stood firm in her convictions and fought for the rights of her people through other AIM projects. In December of 1975, Anna Mae's life came to a mysterious and untimely end. She disappeared under suspicious circumstances, and 2 months later, a rancher found her body at the bottom of a 30-foot embankment on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Her cause of death was listed as exposure, and she was buried in an unidentified grave. But her family knew better. Her family demanded a second autopsy. It was discovered that Anna Mae was raped and shot in the back of the head. Later evidence showed that she was kidnapped and interrogated. Anna Mae's murder made national and local headlines, but not always with accurate information. This began a 35-year investigation into Anna Mae's death. Speculation and theories abound regarding the events leading to Anna Mae's demise. Some believe she was targeted for her activism, silenced by those threatened by her unwavering commitment to justice. Others say AIM members suspected Anna Mae was an FBI informant, and that played a role in her death. Over time, the investigation stalled as AIM members refused to cooperate with prosecutors. They didn't trust the authorities. It wasn't until the late 1990s that AIM members began to come forward. One of AIM's former security guards, Arlo Looking Cloud, confessed to taking part in Anna Mae's abduction and murder. He then shared that another AIM member, John Graham, was responsible for pulling the trigger. The 2 men were sentenced to life in prison. In 2004, Anna Mae's body was returned and buried in Nova Scotia. Today, her story symbolizes the injustice and oppression Indigenous women face. Her life and death also helped inspire the mission behind the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, or MMIW movement. In February of 2019, the South Dakota Senate Committee introduced a bill that would require the Division of Criminal Investigation to begin setting guidelines for data collection of possible MMIW cases. All month, we're talking about disappearing acts. For more information, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Womanica Podcast. Special thanks to Liz Kaplan, my favorite sister and co-creator. Talk to you tomorrow.
For 25 years, Brightview Senior Living has been dedicated to creating an award-winning company culture so residents and families receive best-in-class services. Across our 50 communities, Brightview associates help deliver peace of mind, safety, security, transportation, daily programs, delicious food, and high-quality care if needed. Discover how our vibrant senior living communities can help you live your best life. Visit brightviewseniorliving.com to learn more. Equal housing opportunity.
Am I doing the right thing with my finances? Am I saving enough? Can I buy a house? Am I paying too much in taxes? Will I be able to retire? Putting a financial plan together feels impossible. What if I told you there was another way? Take Facet's free financial wellness quiz to get your score and a snapshot of your current financial health. Visit Facet.com now and discover your financial wellness score today. That's FACET.com.
This ad is sponsored by Facet. Facet Wealth Incorporated is an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is not an offer to buy or sell securities, nor is it investment, legal, or tax advice.
Imagine you're a fly on the wall at a dinner between the mafia, the CIA, and the KGB. That's where my new podcast begins. This is Neil Strauss, host of To Live and Die in LA, and I wanted to quickly tell you about an intense new series about a dangerous spy taught to seduce men for their secrets and sometimes their lives. From Tenderfoot TV, this is To Die For. To Die For is available now. Listen for free on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart, and we're back with a new season of my podcast. This season will be even more revealing and more personal, with more entrepreneurs, more live events, and more questions from you. I'm talking to my cosmetic dermatologist, Dr. Dan Belkin, about the secrets behind my skincare. Encore Jane about creating a billion-dollar startup. Walter Isaacson about the geniuses who changed the world. Listen and subscribe to the Martha Stewart podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.